I was daydreaming and this found its way into my thoughts. I was riding down a highway somewhere in Texas on an old '68 Triumph. I hit a bump and the frame on my bike cracked. Well, I pulled over and shut the bike off. I looked around and it seemed like I was miles away from anything. So I decided to push the bike down the road. After a few miles and by chance, I came across a small shop. I kicked down the stand and parked the bike. I opened the door and went inside. I saw a guy welding something and I thought, it's my lucky day. The guy flipped up his mask and asked me what I wanted. I told him the frame on my bike was broke and asked if he could weld it. He smiled and said, I can weld that. Well, as he struck an arc and welded the broken frame on my bike, I looked around and was amazed at all the things he created. Shelves, cabinets, tables, all types of beautiful furniture made out of steel and wood were scattered around the shop. I could tell they were made by a craftsman. On each piece was a small brand burned into it, the initials LEB. After he finished the weld and chipped off the slag, I thanked him and asked him what I owed him. He said, it's on the house, old-timer. I thanked him again and we shook hands. We started talking and found we had much in common. We both like working with our hands and love music. We love dogs and liked old-school stereos and building things. He said, are you thirsty? I replied, yeah, man. So we decided to go have a few beers together and off we went to the local bar. I bought a round than he did. We talked for a long time about what is important in our lives. We talked about relationships, politics, technology, outer space, the environment, war and peace. We talked for hours about anything and everything. We talked about what we wanted to do and accomplish in our lives. We realized we valued the same things in life. We loved our families, our friends, and our country. He talked about famous visionaries and philosophers of the past and how they warned us of the future. He was very focused as he articulated their words and ideas. I sensed that was very important to him. He quoted many and spoke their words as if he wrote them. It was like it was part of him. I listened to every word he said and was astonished by his ability to communicate the thoughts and ideas he had. I thought to myself, here's a guy building furniture out of steel and wood, and yet his thoughts, ideas, and character ran so much deeper. Well, as he paused in his thoughts, I asked him if he was married. With a huge smile on his face, he talked about his wife, how they met, the trips they took together, and the dreams they shared. I could tell from his voice and his eyes that he loved her to the moon and back. As the night grew on and the time flew by, we both realized it was getting late. He said, I'm tired, I have to go. I have something very important to do. I said, I'm tired too, let's call it a night. Well, we shook hands one more time and thanked each other for the beers and conversation. As we left the bar and breathed in the cool night air, we looked up at the sky, and at that moment a shooting star streaked by. We both smiled. I got on my old Triumph with the welded frame, kick-started it, put it in gear, and twisted the throttle and pulled away. I looked in my mirror and saw he was giving me a thumbs up. I hit 2 short bursts on the horn and drove away. I reflected on our time together as I was driving down the road in my Triumph, and I thought I should have gone back to that shop and spent one more night talking to the guy who welded my bike. There was so much more we could have shared, but time was short. He had something important to do, and I needed to hit the road. I'll always remember that day, that time in my life, and that guy who welded my bike. Now, while this may just seem like a story, something of a daydream, a little fiction mixed with a lot of fact, it's a story that will play in my heart and mind for as long as I live. As fate may have it, and by God's good will, one day I hope to meet that guy again, in another time, at another place, and we will have so much more to talk about. Until we meet again, LEB, until we meet again. I wrote this story to share my feelings about my son-in-law, Lance Everett Brown, a man who had many skills and a keen insight into human nature and what life was all about. It saddens me that he passed, but he'll always be in our hearts. Now, this may seem like the end of a story. It's actually the beginning of another one. Lance has moved on and he is free from disease and pain. He is looking down on all who he loved and those who loved him. After our conversations in that bar, I understood that he would want those he left behind to live on. He'd want them to find joy, happiness, and peace in their lives. He'd want them to live, love, and be strong. He'd want them to care for and love themselves at least as much as they loved and cared for him. The interesting thing about love is that it continues through time and distance. While he is as far away as anyone can get, he's still present in your heart and in your thoughts. All the energy, effort, and time spent caring for him should continue, but be redirected toward yourselves. I bet that's what Lance would want. The best honor and tribute to a loved one who passed is to live our lives to the fullest extent. That's what they want us to do, love ourselves and carry on. I believe that is what Lance would want. Now every morning when you get up, look to the sky, know he is with you. And every night when you go to bed, he is tucking you in. He is always with you. And one day you'll meet him again, in another time, at another place. Let these words bring us comfort and peace, and know that is what Lance wishes for us all. Keep smiling, and God bless.